This video is going to discuss ear training and give you a few examples that hopefully will help you to decide whether you need to work on your ear training or not. And if there's time, we'll talk about how to go about working on your ear training. Okay, so let me just play a passage two different ways. One will be in tune and one will be out of tune. And I want you to tell me if you can tell which one is in tune and which one is not in tune. Okay, here's example number one. Here's way number two. Mary had a little lamb. So let me give you the answer. The first way was in tune. It wasn't completely perfect, but it was way better than the second way. Now let me ask you a further question. Do you know if the way I played it out of tune, do you know if my notes were too high or too low? That's pretty advanced if you can answer this question. So if you can't get that one right, don't worry too much about it, but see if you can answer. Am I playing sharp or flat? The giveaway is the open strings. I'm playing open strings which are in tune. So it's the fingered notes that really you're listening to against the open strings. Okay, let me do another example. We'll play row, 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 row your boat. Here's example number one. That was number one. Here's number two. The first way was out of tune. The second way was in tune. Let me repeat the out of tune one again. And tell me if you think the notes are too high or too low. Again, when you're first starting out, it's hard to tell if they're too high or too low. It's really good if you just know that they're wrong. In that example, I was playing flat. Let me give you one more example. Here's number one. Here's number two. Okay, so number two was out of tune. Number one was in tune. And in general, I was playing, did you think it was too high or too low? In general, I was playing sharp. Okay, so those three examples were just illustrating the ability to compare fingered notes relative to open strings and be able to tell if you're in tune or not. Okay, and those were fairly obvious. If you were unable to answer which one was in tune and which one was out of tune, you definitely want to work on your ear training, and it's not hard to do. And there's lots of free resources that you can do, but if you were unable to get those three examples correct, then you need to work on your ear training. All right, so if you need to work on your ear training, I like to introduce several steps, starting from easiest to hardest, and let me just list some of those steps. These ear training exercises are built into my Suzuki online violin lessons. They're just part of the video lessons that you get. But here's what I teach in those lessons. First, we start with pitch comparison. First we say, are these two notes the same or different? And then I'll go where you can't see me and I'll play something like this. That's one, and that's two. Are they the same or different? They're the same. And then I'll give you something like this. Same or different. And you'll say, hopefully, they're different. Some people have a hard time telling that because those notes are right next to each other. They're not that far apart, so they kind of sound similar, but most people can get that answer correct, but some can't. And then we get closer and closer together. Same or different? Different. And then we start to zero in on questions like, well, if they're different, is the first note higher or lower than the second note? So listen to those two notes. This is the first note. This is the second note. Which one is highest? Which one is lowest? And the answer is the first note was lower, the second note was higher. So that's the first thing, is pitch comparison. Are they the same or different? If they're different, which note is higher and which note is lower? And I usually start with notes that are far apart so that it's easier. And then the notes get closer and closer together until you're listening to not even two different notes, just two versions of the same note, like this. That's less than a quarter tone apart, and that's pretty advanced. But with ear training, your ear can tell that the first one was higher and the second one was a little bit lower. And that's when you can really start listening carefully to your own intonation and fixing little imperfections in your intonation. After you get really good with pitch comparison, I like to do what's called match that pitch or find that pitch. And that's where you have your violin out and I play a note on mine and you try to find it on yours. And at first you get as many tries as you want, and there's no penalty. Then I start challenging you to try it, to find and match the same note in 3 tries or less, and you're able to do it. It's amazing how quickly the ear educates itself. So here's just one example. Here's a note. Go ahead and match that note on your violin or on your piano or whatever you're using. And the ear helps to eliminate some of your choices by recognizing, oh, that's definitely not a high E string note. That's on the lower side of the violin. So you'd start fishing for the notes on the G string or the D string. Okay. And this brings me to another topic, which is timbre recognition. With experience, you start recognizing the sound of each string's voice and the pitch range that is associated with each string. And that timbre recognition can really help you to find and match the pitch in 3 tries or less pretty easily. Now that note that I was playing, can you sing that note? Let's figure out if you have pitch memory. Third finger on the G string, the pitch is C. That's another important part of ear training and of just musical development, is learning a pretty decent pitch memory where you can recall a pitch that you've heard recently. It is a helpful skill to have pitch memory. Okay, and then once you get good at finding and matching the pitch, then we do rhythm exercises where you have to clap back a certain rhythm, or better yet, play a certain rhythm on your violin, like copy this rhythm, and you would play it back on your open D string. That helps to rhythmize your bow arm and start introducing rhythm memory. Then we start getting to the more complicated levels of ear training by studying and recognizing the intervals. Intervals are just musical measurements between two pitches. We start with small and we get bigger and bigger. The smallest interval is no interval, it's a unison. It's where you play the same note. They're in unison. Then the next smallest interval is a black note and a white note right next to each other on the keyboard. That's called a half step. The official name is a minor second. It's jaws. Ba-dum, da-dum, dun, 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 dun. And you can memorize little songs that help you to recognize each of the intervals. We go from unison, minor second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, minor sixth, major sixth, and so on and so forth. And that takes lots of drilling. You have to be able to recognize the intervals going from bottom note to top note and descending, hearing the top note first and then hearing the bottom note. Most people neglect that part, and that leaves a weakness in their ear training. It's important to be able to name intervals when they're descending as well. And what that does for you is allows you to play by ear. It helps you to memorize tunes. It just is extremely handy, especially on an instrument with no frets. All right, I hope this video has given you some guidance as to whether you need ear training, first of all, and what you need to work on to train your ears. Like I said, it is not hard to train your ears. Most people are willing to do the work, but they don't know what they're supposed to do. And there are lots of free cell phone apps that are designed to help train your ears. There are websites that are wonderful for ear training exercises. They have interactive quizzes. And then, of course, my online violin lessons will also do a great job of training your ears. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.